Well, hey, everybody. Welcome today to Take a Break with The Gathering. My name is Jeff Allen. I'm super excited you're here today. Joining me is my friend, Maddie Denton.
Hello.
And hey, Maddie. And my friend, Dave Merrill.
Hi, everybody.
Well, that's we're so glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about Pastor Matt's final sermon in the Untethered series, which has been about faith deconstruction. And this week, he discussed the things that we may be looking for in our lives. So before we begin our little chat, I want you guys to take a look at this.
Now, I was thinking about this over the past 20-something years in ministry. I've talked to, I think, literally thousands of people who are looking for something when they come to church. And I was paying attention to what those conversations have been like, what it is that people are looking for. And I've become convinced that pretty much all of us are looking for at least one of four things in our life. Now, some of us are looking for forgiveness. We've screwed up and made mistakes, and we have all these regrets, and no amount of achievement or money or success can kind of undo that. We're looking for forgiveness. I think some of us are looking for relationships. So many of us, I think, are lonely or feel like our relationships only go or surface level, only so deep, and we're looking for deeper relationships to be able to not have to pretend and to be known and worthy and loved even as we are. I think a lot of us are looking for help. We've hit that point in our life where we realize that we cannot control it all. We can't do it all. We can't carry it all. We can't fix it all. We need help. And finally, I think a lot of us are just looking for something more. We have this sense that I'm living my life, but I feel like maybe I'm missing something, or I want my life to count for something. I want to make an impact. And here's the thing. I think that Jesus, what's most powerful about Jesus is that in him we find what we're looking for. I think a lot of you are probably looking for at least one of those four things. I've looked for all four of them at different points in my life. And at the end of this series where we've been talking about all the doubts we have, the uncertainties in faith, I just want you to know that faith is not like some intellectual puzzle that has to all fit together. But faith is ultimately a relationship, an invitation to come and find in Jesus what we're looking for, not without doubts, but even with them. So today I just invite you, even if you've questioned, even if you're challenging the faith, don't give up on Jesus. Come to him, trust him, follow him, and see if in him you won't find what you're looking for.
There it is.
How about that?
Yeah.
Pastor Matt, you can hear him raspy. He made it through that one.
So 4 points. Looking for forgiveness, relationships, help, and looking for something more. So Matt says all of these things can be found in Jesus, and his plea is this: even if we're in deconstruction mode, that we not give up on Jesus. So the question today is, how has Jesus given you hope even in times of faith crisis or deconstruction mode? I don't think they're one and the same. Let me be clear on that. Deconstruction doesn't mean you're in a crisis necessarily.
And just so I know, and everyone else knows who's watching, how long do we have? Are these pithy answers? Is this you want
just
5
go
minutes?
for it, Dave?
We can just talk for a while.
You got this.
Maddie, he introduced you first, which hurt my feelings. So I'm going to let you go first on the answer.
How is Jesus giving me hope in times of faith crisis? I think that this is a huge question, Jeff, and I'm so glad that we got to think about it a little bit ahead of time. Yes. A lot of the hope that I have found in Jesus in times of faith crisis comes from the consistency of Jesus. I think that I am someone who I resonated the most with his point around coming and looking for help. Because I'm someone who likes to do everything that I can entirely on my own. I don't like needing help. And one of the biggest learning curves that I've had to go through over the last couple of years has been getting to a place where I can accept help. And so I'm typically pretty stubborn and kind of frustrating when I get to a place where I actually need it because I don't ask for it. And I think the hope that I found is that Jesus is consistent even when I'm being stubborn and frustrating and don't want to ask. And it's evident to God and everyone around me that I need to ask. So I think that I appreciate that about my relationship with Jesus, is that it is constant. and doesn't waver even when I'm having a hard time. And there might be other relationships in my life that don't do that. So I find hope there.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think that consistency of Jesus is like something where I had to, in order to even answer this question, I had to ask myself, like, well, it's not fair for me to answer this because in Jesus, I find like, a consistency, or like, I have to believe that ultimately what Jesus did was true, right? Like the idea that love ultimately wins, regardless of what you think of Jesus. That like, even if you're watching and you're like, it's just a narrative, the idea that love wins or conquers over hardship or hard times or death is foundational for me. And then that frees me up to say, like, how does Jesus help me in this? Because I don't want the answer to just be, oh, Jesus just helps. What Jesus did and who Jesus was. So like the incarnation is a big deal for me. And so like for me, I had like 3 ideas jotted down, and we can think about these. But the first one, like the reality of Jesus conquering as like love conquering death, it frees me to like change my vantage point. Like a lot of times in hard times, I see myself or I'll see others saying like, oh, because this happened, I question God, or because this has gone down, like now, like I'm not sure, my faith is insecure, or I have a faith crisis, right? And instead, like because of what Jesus has done, showing that like the incarnation is real, like I can know, okay, if that's true, then I just need to change my vantage point and say, like, how can God help me through this? Like the reality of humanity is broken. And if I can accept that, okay, that's cool. But instead of looking for God in the tragedy, I'm going to look for him on the other side in the redemption, which is kind of what we're called to in Scripture.
No, that's great, Dave. That's good, because I think about that all the time. Like most of the time when something happens and I find myself in a faith crisis or doubting or something, it's because people, like besides me, like other people just like me have done something and I'm like, oh, can't identify with this anymore. But Jesus doesn't change in all that,
That's right. Maddie, were you going to say something too?
No, I mean,
Okay.
kind of just playing off that. So let's hear your next point.
The other thing was the second thing is Jesus frees me to be human. It allows my like human emotion to be okay. So my doubt and my questioning and my insecurity and my faith crisis, like it's cool because it doesn't change the bottom line at all. Like this idea that if I know like, okay, in the end, like it's all good, it frees me to be like, okay, like I can waver. I'm not the one who's meant to be constant and solid, like Jesus is in me, the one living in me. So it frees us up and gives us the freedom to do that, which is another really reassuring thing.
I love that one. And I think that one too, like, especially when we think about the relationships that we have with other people, that lesson and being able to like learn that it is okay to be a person in relationship to Jesus then frees you up to be able to be a person in your relationships, which I think is one of the things that has helped me get through faith crises, because it takes community, I think, to be able to process through the things that you're working through. But if you feel like you can't show up as your full self in the community that you're in, then you're not going to be able to really work through what you're trying to work through. And so I think like recognizing that you as a person can show up as your whole self in your community and in relationship to Jesus is like a game changer when it comes to working through faith.
You don't have to think about you don't have to try to be who you should be. You can just be who you are, which is really awesome. And then third and finally, I said that it allows me to find hope in all things. And so in this one, I went back to Scripture just because it was awesome. So in Romans 8:11, it says, if the spirit of the one who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you, the one who raised Christ from the dead will give life to your human bodies also through his spirit that lives in you. So when we're in faith crises, or when I'm in a faith crisis, like one, I can be human, like we just said. And two, like I can just look to others. I can look to anything, all living things, and know that the spirit of the one who raised Jesus from the dead also lives in those things. And so I don't have to find it within my own circle. I can find it in my relationships with other people or my friends or the seasons or anything that's living out there in the world. It allows me to say like, okay, on the other side of this faith crisis, there is hope because I see it all around me. I don't just have to feel God internally, which is not how it works all the time. So,
yeah, we've got some comments here from Facebook, and
hi, Brando.
I want to share them. So I can't see who is posting these. If you guys are looking, I don't know. This one is good. This is an answer to the question. They say, because I know that Jesus can take my doubt, it doesn't scare him. That's good.
That's right.
Jesus says, come and see. Sometimes seeing takes a while. That's really good. And this is good. This is Stephanie actually put her name here, which is great. Jesus gives me hope by his consistency. Even if I can't see it at that exact moment, others can, and make sure I know what they are seeing. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading this.
It's okay.
So I guess in a roundabout way, Jesus gives me hope through my community. I love that.
That is exactly right. Stephanie.
Yes.
Hi, Stephanie. You're one of our online hosts.
Yes. She's one of our online hosts for Church Online. She's awesome. And also she says this, human emotion is okay. So nice to hear that from a pastor. Hasn't been her experience in the past. I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah. Human emotion is good.
Yeah.
Well, this is fun. This is my first one of these. I love this.
Yeah.
Like quick little snippet over like a lunch break. This is cool.
This is a good time. I want to say too, like the questions worded like this, like even in times of faith crisis, and this is something that we've talked about throughout this series, is the idea of deconstruction. And I said this earlier, that I don't think that faith crises and deconstruction are the same thing. I do think that like a faith crisis can cause deconstruction. But I think you can also go through deconstruction without having any kind of crisis at all, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think deconstruction also isn't like a one and done thing. So it doesn't have to be this like grand thing that you're working through. I think a lot of it is like you're almost inevitably going to have to deconstruct and reconstruct if you stay open to the idea that God's going to do new things in your life, because you're going to learn one lesson only to come back around to something new and have a whole new thing that you're kind of working through using what it is that you just learned. So I think like being open to the idea that that's just kind of a part of the process is like working through things and having things feel like they resonate 1 minute and struggling with them the next, and knowing that that's like a natural part of the faith process, I think is huge. And that crises don't necessarily have to happen in order for that to be a part of it.
That's right. And when I hear someone saying I'm deconstructing, or I hear about it, all I hear is I'm trying to understand God more. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the point. That's what all of humanity is. If anybody walks up to you and says that they have it figured out, walk away. That's a problem. That is very problematic. So it's all us just coming to an understanding. So we're unpacking things in order to repack them in so that we can make better sense of it. And if you can usually go simpler than more complex, you're probably on the right track, is what my advice would be. So
that's good.
I hope you guys take all this stuff just as like ways in which you can deconstruct, like options for helping you deconstruct to make more sense of it.
Guys, thanks for joining us today. One thing before we head out, I want to point you to our social media, but specifically the Instagram page, because I think Monday and at least Tuesday, the short gathering, which is the clip we showed at the beginning, will be out there on social media for you to check out. And the point of it is kind of like the cliffs notes of the sermon. And so like if you missed it, you can kind of get in there and get the gist of it, if you will.
And not that anyone would ever miss Sunday or miss church.
No.
But if you did, it's a good way to get it in 2 minutes. I'm just going to say.
That's right. So follow us on Gathering Now on Instagram, and we'll see you guys. Thanks for joining me today, Maddie and Dave.
Yep.
And hey, if you ever missed this, by the way, go search this on your podcast platforms, because I've got Take a Break out there. You can just listen to the audio later.
I just learned that.
You did right now, this very moment.
I didn't know that this was being recorded and putting out to the world. That's great.
Yeah.
Are you going to send me show notes, Jeff? I want show notes.
Show notes, yeah. So one more thing before we go. I can't tell who this is, but I know it's Brando who wrote this. There's no way it's not Brando.
It is. I'm following on my phone, so you're not anonymous. I can see you.
So there is no Gathering Snapchat. All right, friends. Thanks so much for joining us today. Take a break after this. Go get you some lunch. Do what you do. See ya.